Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm doing another Chats with Charlie and today's topic is going to be about IBS. If you yourself have IBS or you're just curious about what it is, if you've heard about it, or you're just here to kind of watch me and my story, then please keep watching. So I wanted to start today's video off by just defining and explaining what IBS is. And it's irritable bowel syndrome, which is, it affects your digestive system, how you digest the food. What happens to that, it can kind of take you one or two ways. Either you digest the food too quickly and then as soon as you eat it you need to go to the loo, or too slowly, and by the time that it's actually digested you actually are not going to the toilet for quite a number of days. So I should probably just say like a little, not trigger warning, but just like a pre-warning that I am going to be talking a lot about bowel movements, toilet, your gut, all of those kind of things, because it's a bowel syndrome. So obviously I'm going to be mentioning things like that. If those kind of topics are something that you don't want to hear about, then just click off this video and go and find something else to watch. I'm hoping that the people that watch this video are either people that have IBS and can relate, or think they might have it and just want a bit of clarity, or people that are just genuinely quite curious about what it is. So it's a digestive system syndrome that kind of just affects how you digest your food and what happens to it. So the causes of IBS are, supposedly it can run in the family, but there's no known causes. Stress, anxiety, those kind of things can bring on IBS, but other causes can be, when I say causes I mean more like the effects, is really bad cramps. And when I say cramps, I don't mean like period pain cramps. I'm talking the type of cramps that really have you feeling like bent over, like when I feel my cramps coming on and I know that my IBS has been triggered, it's a type of pain where it's like sometimes I have to breathe through it. It is so painful. It's really sharp, like your stomach feels like it's doing this. So it's like contracting and then releasing, contracting, releasing. And I know if you've probably seen it on the adverts, what comes to my mind now is the like IBS Buscopan adverts, where your stomach, it goes into a knot and it feels like it's being pulled, and that's really what the cramps feel like. Is that they're very sharp pains. It's not it's nothing like period pains, it's completely different. So I'd say if you're watching this video and you're thinking, oh, sometimes that happens to me, I'm not sure if it's IBS or I've just got an upset stomach, that's kind of how the cramps feel like. They just feel like you're really bent over, like it is really painful, and that can go on for a number of hours or, you know, a number of minutes. It depends. So cramps is an effect, bloating is another effect, diarrhea is another one, and also constipation. And this is a lifelong, like, I don't know what you would call it, like disease, illness, syndrome, I don't know. It's a lifelong thing that you deal with, and then at the minute there's no known nothing that can treat it as such. There's things that can help ease it or just help soften any of the cramps, but there's nothing can really like treat and get rid of IBS. So once you have it, you do tend to have it for life then, and it's just something you learn to live with. So that is just an overview of me defining and giving a little bit of background to what IBS actually is. So now moving on to my story, when I first knew that I had this, what happened, my triggers, that kind of thing. So I first felt the first like cramp when I was 16. I was at my friend's house and I don't even know what we were doing. We were just chilling after school and I was on the toilet and I just felt this really like painfully sharp stomach cramp, and nothing that I'd ever felt before. Like I said, it's not like period pains, it is different. So I just felt this pain and I thought, this is not going away. It keeps coming and going, and nothing was really happening. I was just sitting on the toilet, like doubled over in so much pain. So I messaged my mum saying, can you come and get me from my friend's house? I'm really not feeling well. And the cramps didn't go. And I didn't know at that point, because I'd never experienced these cramps, what it was. Obviously you have to be careful that these pain isn't in a certain area, it's not appendicitis. So naturally my mum took me to A&E, because if you have really intense stomach pains, you have to be careful what it is, like I said, in case it is something as serious as appendicitis. So we went to A&E, and I kind of, by the time that I was waiting around, the cramps had kind of eased a little bit, and then we finally got into the to see a doctor. So I finally got in to see a doctor, and I kind of explained how I was feeling, what was going on, and he said to me, it sounds a lot like IBS. IBS isn't something that can really be diagnosed. They can just say it's likely to be this. So that was my first experience of it was, and I'm sure I probably had maybe some signs or some feelings of it before, but never pain like that. So that was my first kind of experience with that. So then after I left the hospital, then I had this kind of like diagnosis as to what kind of things were going on. I then started to read up on it, see the effects, the causes, all those kind of things. And certain food groups can bring on your cramps. So then it was just kind of researching that and seeing what affects me and my body. So I think at first I realised that too much dairy really upsets my stomach. So I tried to reduce the amount of dairy that I was having. So I wasn't having like Ben and Jerry's all the time. I wasn't having loads of milk in my cereal. I was just reducing, not cutting out, because I still like want those things. I still like dairy a lot. Things like cheese. I would often have a lot of cheese boards, cheese nights. Like, I'm a huge cheese fan. So it wasn't about cutting those foods out, it was more just about reducing them. So I found out that dairy was one of my not my biggest trigger, but definitely one of them. If I have too much of it, which I think a lot of people are like that, if you have too much of one thing and then you don't feel well. But with IBS, if you have too much of something, like too much dairy, then it's not just, oh, I'm feeling a little bit unwell, it's really intense stomach cramps and potentially being on and off the toilet all night. So that was one of my first ones that I figured out was dairy. I also figured out that caffeine is another one, so I can't have too much coffee. Again, that's another like trigger that I didn't realise until it was too late. I think that is the main thing with IBS, is that you have to kind of trial and error, and it is kind of like you find out the hard way which foods really upset your stomach and which foods you're okay with. So I'd have a coffee every morning. That's just what I would usually do, and sometimes I'd have a coffee in the afternoon. And I just realised that coffee, again, because I'd have milk in my coffee and the caffeine, the combination of the two would also really upset my stomach, and that would bring on the bloating and the cramps. So them two, as well as like needing to go to the loo all the time, were my main like symptoms. I would never really suffer with not needing to go. I would always need to go too much, if you know what I mean. So yeah, caffeine, I would start just make switches, like alternatives. So I'd go to caffeine free, like decaf coffee, and sometimes I just like test it, because you go through phases where it's really triggered or it's not, so it's not too bad, and you can kind of, sometimes I know, oh, like it's not too bad, I can have a bit more caffeine than what I usually would. Or if I know that something is starting to trigger it, then that I need to come off the caffeine so much. And things would also not only affect my stomach, but I think because that was feeling upset, then it affects the rest of your body. So I would, in the summer, have a lot of ice lattes, that kind of thing. And I realised because that would upset my stomach so much, I'd then start to get headaches from it. So dairy and caffeine are two things that I now know that I need to pull back on, and that I can't have too much, because that is one of my triggers. And like I said, everybody is different food groups affects people differently. just before I was doing this video, I was looking at other foods that upset people's stomachs and they can be triggers because they're harder to digest, are actually a lot of fruit and vegetables, which veg I'm pretty much fine on. They don't really tend to affect me that much. Fruits, if I'm eating them by themselves, are fine, but I know that fruit juice is a huge trigger, so I barely drink any fruit juice. Again, found out the hard way that too much fruit juice is not pretty at all. And I have kind of a funny story time about that, which is probably TMI, but I'm gonna tell it anyway, which is it was a couple of years ago now, because it was my boyfriend's 20th birthday and he's now 24, so we'd only been together a year, and we had gone away for his birthday, went to a caravan site, and it was that also we were away for his birthday, but it was a family friend's 50th or something, so we got all dressed up for this masquerade ball. If I can find some pictures, I'll put them here because they are quite nice to look back on, and we both look so different. So yeah, it was a family friend's masquerade ball, 50th or something, or 30th, I'm not sure. Anyway, so I was still at that time maybe 18, so I still wasn't really sure what my drink of choice, alcoholic drink of choice was. So anything that was suggested, I'm oh, I'll give that a go. So I was having a lot of vodka and orange juices. No, not a good pairing. I now know. Well, I don't drink orange juice. I don't really drink any juices, like I said, but I cannot drink the amount that I had that night. I probably had a pint of orange juice, and the amount of drinks I had. I don't know whether it was the combination of that with vodka or just the orange juice itself, but needless to say, considering I'd only been with Lewis a year, it was a rough night. So I got up. Like I said, if you know caravans, they are quite small. The toilets are quite small. They only have a small window to push out. And yeah, like I said, it was a rough night. I was up and down, going from between the toilet. And it definitely, there are no barriers in my relationship now that I have not crossed on that night, where you think, oh, you shouldn't see your partner doing this, you shouldn't see your partner doing that. I was in so much pain, I needed somebody to hold my hands. So that definitely, anything that was oh no, I don't want him to see me like this, I don't want, no, everything was just cut out that night, got it over with. Like I said, it was a rough night. So I now know orange juice is not the one. Fruit juices, don't even try them, because they really upset my stomach. I think it's just too much acidity, and that's what really brings on the cramps and then needing to go to the toilet. So those are the kind of food groups that really affect my IBS, but I'd say the biggest trigger for me that upsets it the most is stress. And this is something that, or stress or nervousness, and this affects me the most often, I would say, because I kind of know now with the food that upsets my stomach what to have an alternative or just to cut back on. But with stress, it kind of just comes on at any point. Nervousness, it kind of can be brought up at any point. So I know that is my biggest trigger. And things such as when I was at uni, I remember my flatmates, my housemates will definitely remember this, when I'd have exams, and my exam might be at 9 a.m. and I've had nothing to eat before, so nothing in that day has upset my stomach, and I know to eat well the night before because I don't want anything to upset my stomach. I will need to go to the toilet 3 times before I leave the house to go to my exam, and my exam is at 9 a.m. and I'm probably waking up at 7:30, and maybe I'd have a banana and that's it. And the banana, I'm fine with that. So that's what I mean by it. That's one of my biggest triggers that upsets my stomach, is stress, because it's just what if this, what if that, you've got yourself your body's so upset that it's then cramping because it doesn't really know what to do. Yeah, so they're just kind of what I know my triggers are. So just an overview. Food categories are dairy, caffeine and fruit juices, and my biggest trigger is stress and feeling quite nervous. And I had quite a big bout of IBS last year when I finished uni, I felt very stressed and a lot of pressure to try and find a job, and I put a lot of that stress and pressure on myself. So during that time, because I was feeling so unsettled, so anxious, stressed, that I then upset my stomach for quite a prolonged period of time. So I was having an upset stomach most days, and that's again another one of, for me, my biggest effects of this is that it comes in waves, and I might have no period, like no episodes of IBS for months, and then all of a sudden it comes at once, and I will get a couple of bad weeks of stomach cramps, bloating, and being woken up in the night because of these pains. So that's just a bit of a background on my story. I just kind of wanted to dip into how it's affected me. Like I said, it's affected me when I'm stressed, but I kind of know now, because since from when I first felt it at 16 to now 22, that it can be anything. I might not even realise that I'm stressed, and then it comes on, and I might feel, I know recently, the past couple of times that I've had like a stomach ache, I would get a headache before I go to bed, and I'm not really prone to headaches at all. That is not something that I really ever tend to get, but the last couple of times that I've had the cramps, I've had a headache before I go to bed, I go to sleep, and then I'm woken up in the middle of the night by the cramps. And I am quite a deep sleeper, so it takes a lot for me to be woken up, which says a lot about how painful these cramps are, because it really is so painful that it wakes me up, and then that, straight away, I know what it is, I know what's about to come, so I need to go to the bathroom straight away. And I could be sitting there for half an hour just waiting for something to happen, and it's so painful. And you might think, oh, I feel so much better after that, come back to bed, go back to sleep, and then another cramp comes on, and you think, I need to go back to the toilet as soon as possible. And that's really how it's affected me, is that I tend to know when it's coming on, and when it is, there's nothing you can really do to stop it once you get to that point. I don't really like to take any medicines or tablets. I just feel like if something's upset my stomach, it needs to come out, and I tend not to really take anything if I don't have to. Obviously, if I'm about to go to work, or if I need to go out somewhere and I know this feeling's coming on, that's when I will take steps to deal with it. Other than that, I just like to let my body do its thing. If it's not feeling great, I will just let it all happen, and then hopefully I'll feel better by the morning. So yeah, that's how it's kind of like the cramps affected me. And I think a lot of people who have IBS or are not sure if they've got it, or just curious about it, want to know what the cramps feel like, and they feel very sharp, like you need to go to the toilet as soon as possible, and they can come about from prolonged periods of being quite stressed. So that's just kind of an overview of my story, how it's affected me, my triggers, what my cramps feel like. So now I'm just gonna go on to how I deal with it. And I deal with it by mainly just letting my body do its thing. It's obviously needing to get something out of its system, so I just let it do its thing. So the first thing that I do is get a hot water bottle, because I think just having some heat there, like if you was having period pains, just kind of eases it, and it kind of distracts, and it's just a comfort. So if I'm not feeling well, luckily actually, if I am woken up in the middle of the night, usually I have my boyfriend next to me, so he'll go and get me a hot water bottle, and I'll just see how long I can just comfort myself. Does it go away just by having that heat there? Usually not, but it does make me feel a little bit better. And then if not, and the pains are really bad and it's quite constant, then I will take Buscopan, which is a tablet that is used specifically for IBS. I think they even have like an IBS cramps Buscopan. So I take this everywhere with me. Like, I take them. I think it's really important to have that when you go on holiday, because who knows what's in food on holiday. I always overindulge, so I have too many ice creams, or I have too much pasta with dairy in or fruit juices. So that is one thing that I know. If I'm going away, I always have buscopan with me. I remember back in 2018 when I went on my girls' holiday to Zante, alcohol can obviously be a big trigger. I don't drink that much, so it's not really a huge trigger for me. But obviously when I went on my girls' holiday, I was drinking a lot, and so were the other girls. And we were getting sore tummies, needing to go to the toilet quite a lot, you know, the alcoholic number twos. So that came in handy not only for me but for the other girls, just to have that buscopan and to really relieve the cramps that you're feeling. So buscopan definitely, hot water bottle, and also like more of a natural remedy is peppermint tea. I don't really like the taste of mint or peppermint, so if I'm really needing something, say if I've had the buscopan and I want something else but it's too early to take another tablet, then I'll have to have some peppermint tea, because that is meant to be quite a natural, like meant to relax your stomach and make you feel a little bit more, what's the word, just like relaxed, and just release the pain of the cramps. But like I said, I don't really like peppermint, I don't really like mint, so that is like if I'm really feeling like I need something to take it away if I'm at work and I've taken some tablets already, I need something to try and ease it even more, then I'll take the peppermint tea. But really the biggest thing that I do to try and deal with my IBS is to know the foods and the things that trigger my cramps and either restrict them, avoid them, or find a substitute. So recently, and this is not really because of cramps, it's more to do with the bloating, I have switched from milk to oat milk. I know a lot of people have been going on like an oat milk hype at the minute. But I really just wanted to see, because I had swapped from, if I was to go to a coffee shop, I'd have not normal milk, but I'd have coconut milk. But I found coconut milk quite thin. It's not as thick as what milk is like, so it has a different texture. I like the flavour, but a different texture to what I would normally have if I was to go to the coffee shop. So I was trying to find another alternative that I could have at home. I think coconut milk, I don't really think that's for me, so I've tried oat milk. And so far I've been less bloated, I have had less of an upset stomach. Not that now I know, even when I was having normal milk, I knew how much I could roughly have before my stomach would get upset, but the bloating has definitely reduced. So I am swapping that out for an alternative, trying oat milk as opposed to normal milk. When I can, I do have decaf coffee. Like in the house, instant coffee, I have decaf as opposed to caffeinated, just because I know that the combination of normal milk and coffee, and if I have too much of both, really upsets my stomach. It is not too bad because I'm having the oat milk. I kind of like, because I'm like balancing it out a little bit, I can have a little bit of caffeine, but I'm only tending to have one coffee a day at the minute, so I'm okay with that. It doesn't affect me so much that I get the cramps, so I know that that's all right. But if I need to, I can find alternatives and just have decaf instead. So yeah, a lot of it is just avoiding the foods that or restricting or substituting my triggers. Like I said, I don't really tend to have too much fruit juice at all. If I do, it will be really quite a small amount, because I know that can really upset my stomach. And the same with cheeses as well. I love cheese. I don't have it. If I could, I would definitely have it every day with pretty much every meal. But I try not to have too much of it, whereas before I'd have like cheese on toast for lunch and a pizza for dinner, and that whole combination would really upset my stomach. I also have to be careful from having like cheese nights, which, so sad, I love a cheese board, but I have to just restrict the amount of cheese that I'm having, because I could easily just have like a whole slab of brie on a cracker and shove it in my mouth, and that would be amazing, but I can't do that. So yeah, the biggest thing that I do to deal with my IBS is just to avoid my triggers and know what my triggers are. Like I said, you usually find out the foods that upset you or the things that upset your stomach the most the hard way, after you've had a rough night with it. And I'm sure there's probably maybe more, like a couple more things that I'm yet to discover that will upset my stomach, so that can't wait for that. Yeah, so I think I've covered everything. It feels like this video's gone really quickly. but really I just wanted to make it just to have like a serious, not serious, but like a conversation surrounding this topic. I don't see many people talk about it. Perhaps they don't suffer with it, they don't know they have it, or it's just not something they want to really put on their channel. But I think it's just to talk about things like, I'm a very open book. I don't know if you've seen from my channel, but I talk about a lot of things. I'm very open to talking about a lot of different things, and IBS is just another one of those things that I deal with. And yeah, I think a lot of people like have symptoms like this and don't even realise that they've got IBS themselves, because I've got quite a few friends that are like, oh, I feel like that sometimes, maybe I've got it. So I thought I'll just throw all of this in one video, define it, give some causes, the effects that it has, my story, and if you relate to that and think actually that kind of sounds a lot like me, chances are you are maybe likely got this as well, and just some like top tips as to things to do to try and deal with it if it's something that you have. So I hope you've all enjoyed this video. Please give it a big thumbs up, leave me a comment, and another thing that I want to say is please subscribe as well, because I've noticed recently I've been checking my like analytics for my videos, and over half of people that watch my videos aren't actually subscribed. Like 67% of people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, and it really does help. It helps push my videos out there so more people can see it if you are subscribed. So just before I sign off, I just want to say please subscribe if you are watching my video. It really does help. Other than that, I will see you in my next video. Bye.